All right. Hey, guys. It is almost noon on Monday, the 22nd. And what I want to do is I want to talk about one of the most popularized funds out there, Ark Investment. It's the Ark Innovation Fund. It's their flagship fund, Kathy Wood's flagship fund. So I kind of want to dig into this. I downloaded what is in it as of the download today. There's about 56 different symbols. I don't necessarily think I'm going to get through all 56 symbols. Let me clean up my screen a little bit. And so let's talk about what's going on. So before I dig into it, I have all the symbols over here. I've already dropped them in. But before I drop into the symbols, let's just talk about the fund itself here, ARKK. And let me come over and actually share with you what I'm looking at. So here's the actual fund, Ark Innovation ETF, about $24 billion market cap. Pretty impressive. So a couple things before I zoom in or zoom out or change or anything, I'm just going to show you right here that it kind of wasn't doing anything coming into, let's call it the second half of 2020, right? It had this, actually, let me zoom out even just a little bit more. Let me zoom out and see. You can see the Ark Innovation Fund went sideways for a solid 2 years, right? Look at this right here. So went sideways, had this little oops down here, had a little oops right there, broke out pre-COVID, came back in, but never broke below its 2018 low. So that's pretty strong, right? It didn't actually, it came back into the sideways channel. Again, we're looking at Ark Innovation, ARKK. But we had basically a 2-year sidewaysness where you wanted to stay away from it. Broke out going into 2020. COVID happened, came back down, got right back up on its feet, and broke out to new lifetime highs in about May, which was pretty impressive. So we have that going higher. And really before 2020, it really wasn't doing anything. It was just going sideways. So something clearly changed with Ark. I want to just divide it by the Qs just to see. So now basically what I'm looking at is I'm still looking at Ark, but instead of it being priced in dollars, it's actually priced in the Qs. It's called a relative price chart. And we see very similar things here where it went sideways for 2 years, even a little bit more here into 2020. But again, in that kind of the May area of 2020, broke out, in this case, in relative highs to the NASDAQ. The reason I'm showing this to you is because the NASDAQ itself, the NASDAQ 100, let's call it 10, 11, 12 trillion dollar company. Think of those 100 symbols as a company. And if you can't beat a 10, 12, 14 trillion dollar company, then you shouldn't be in something that is way, way smaller. So Ark is doing pretty well. This is its flagship. I just want to see what it's done from the COVID bottom. It's up 350%. Now, for the sake, let's just see what the NASDAQ did from the bottom of COVID to the top. Notice they both peaked about the same time. Yeah, so the NASDAQ 100 is up 100%. Ark Innovation's up 350%. So clearly 360%, clearly outperforming the NASDAQ 100, which is a very, very, very hard symbol to beat. And it had a little bit of a correction this year, and it's down 30%. Guys, a 30% fall in a symbol that's gone up 350% in 12 months is healthy. In fact, you want it. And so right now, I just look at this and it's kind of going sideways right now. I mean, this is a real fall of 30%. But what I'm saying is it's not collapsing. It's not end of world. It simply had a 30% correction right alongside actually when, let's just see what happened. The NASDAQ 100 had its 10%, 11% correction. Yeah, the NASDAQ had an 11% correction. So that's actually right in line, right? The NASDAQ 100's up 100% and has corrected 11%. Not bad. Ark Innovation is up 360% and has corrected just 30%. So in many ways, it's actually still performing much better than the Qs. So you could just buy the symbol if you want. It's definitely on fire. I'd probably wait for it to break above that kind of resistance zone right there. Call that 130. If it's above 130, it's probably safer to be long. Right now, it's still in the digestion. So what I don't know is it going to break down again and test this lower range, kind of this 109? And so I'm in no rush to get into this. I don't actually own it. None of this is financial advice. I'm just a market observer, but just kind of talking about where those kind of good points are. So what I want to do is I want to go inside of this symbol. And like I said, I went to go get all the symbols. Now I went over to ETFDB, that's etfdatabase.com, just to pull the symbols. I did not go to the actual Ark site. So I don't know if there's any lag on when they get the new update, what they own. But here's all the symbols, about 56 symbols, 55 symbols. And we've got a lot of green today. Now, what I want to do is just go over to year to date. I just want to see year to date which ones. So what's interesting is year to date, generally speaking, half are up, half are down. So I just did that with just coming over here and just looking at year to date. So because I want to see what is the strongest for the year. And if we come over here, the symbol itself, actually, this is important. I want to see the symbol itself. I want to see if actually Ark K is up for the year. So Ark K itself is barely up for the year. So I want to know what inside of Ark K is actually pulling it higher and what's pulling it lower. And when we sort it by year to date, we basically see half the symbols pulling it higher and half the symbols pulling it lower. Now, this is just year to date, right? Tesla's down year to date, somewhere in the middle. So I want to just go up here and start with the strongest. And what I want to do, I just kind of want to quickly see, like, okay, we've got DraftKings up there. So we may go look at that. We got PAC-B looking good. We're looking at some symbols, and we're going to dig into a couple of these. But right away, just notice how quickly we can find the strongest in some of the strongest, right? We're looking at an ETF Ark K, and then almost immediately we can figure out what are the strongest symbols within that symbol. And there's quite a few of them that look pretty good. So what I want to do is move this price chart over to the other price chart. I want to move this screen over to the other screen so I can start digging into a couple of these and see if there's some pretty good looking symbols to get into. So let me do that. Let me pull this. I'm going to take this over to my other screen so I can see that. And then let's dig into some of these symbols. And I'm going to go back to kind of my standard view here. I'm going to go back to 3.5 years. And let's dig into, maybe there's 55 symbols. Let's look at the strongest 5 or 10 for the year and see if we can find something interesting. So actually the strongest one, DKNG, DraftKings, was the strongest symbol year to date in there. I mean, this thing is just looking great all over. Broke above that. It's trending higher. Looking pretty good. I want to find something that has a nice entry. I mean, look, anything over $64, you got to be bullish on it if you're looking kind of for a line in the sand. So if it's above 64, then that's looking pretty good. I want to see if I can find something else, though. PAC-B, Pacific Biosciences of California. This is interesting. This shape here kind of looks very similar to actually what Ark Innovation looks like, but it's up for the year. It's up 36% for the year. And I think anything above $36 right there really is a pretty good entry. If it breaks below this 28, I'm going to call that stay out of it. So it has a nice entry. It has a nice place to say where you're wrong. So that's PAC-B right there. I believe these are way long lifetime highs. I like buying things that are at lifetime highs and doing a correction. For reference, we talked about Ark Innovation being up 360% since the COVID bottom. This is up 20x. It's up 2,000% since that same March bottom. So this thing is absolutely on fire. Guys, that means it can move in any direction very, very fast. It's hard to put rules to something that's up 20x. 20x, 2,000% in a year. But that's what it's up. That's amazing. This one looks insane. It's hard to trade this. Clearly, if it breaks below this right here, you're wrong. But I mean, this thing just looks so insane for it to go from 12 to 55 back down to 22. I don't like how crazy it looks. I'd probably stick it. I'd probably skip it. Intelli Therapeutics, I like it. Again, it has a nice correction here that it did. This for sure, guys, was a clean out. That for sure cleaned people out right below there. This is a wild child. Again, this went from, let's see, 10 to 85. So it's up, what, 750% in less than a year, 780%. It's going to be hard placing stop losses on this. You almost, I mean, look at this correction here. That was a 45% correction. When something's up over 500% in a year, you really got to be thinking about having a 50% trailing stop loss, 50, which means your position sizing is very important. So if you wanted to get into an Intelli, you're really looking at, a 50% trailing stop loss on this guy or gal. Okay, TXG, this was another, I'm just going down the list of the best performing symbols in Ark Innovation this year. Love it. $20 billion, basically going straight up since it's been a publicly traded company. It's been doing well. Moved into the COVID. Clearly, it was trending higher into the COVID. Fell just like everything else, got right back on its feet, and it is moving higher. And it is moving up towards, I like this. This looks good. Certainly above 162 is a buy. Again, wild child. It corrected 30%, which, guys, a 30% correction. What's this up? 300%? Yeah, it's up. Let's call it 300%. A 30% correction when something's up 300% a year is not that big. So we've done 1, 2, 3, 4. We've done 5 so far. I'll do a few more, then I'll pick my favorite. I'd absolutely skip this thing. I have no idea what it's doing. It's going sideways. It's confusing. You don't want to buy confusion. This just looks confusing to me. Yes, it did this after COVID, but man, I just see this huge resistance right here that it's having a very hard time. I would skip this completely and find something with more strength, which this symbol does have. Baidu here is its number 7 as far as performance for the year. Not that scared with this. I mean, here very likely is its old lifetime high right there. I could zoom out and look, the 2017, 2018. All these symbols, guys, have dividends reinvested. So that's what they've got there. And so I'm just going to, let me just zoom out here. Yeah, so this is Baidu's old lifetime high. It popped up. I'm going to zoom back in, but you can see it popped up out to new lifetime highs, came back into that range where there's been buyers and sellers back and forth at this price. As long as it does not break down below the bottom blue line, it's still more bullish than bearish, and certainly above the top blue line. You've got to be bullish on this. So let's just call that 270, and let's just move back in. So anything above 270 on Baidu, if you just look at that, that's the same zone I was showing you before. It's definitely something that you have to be bullish on. So Baidu's looking pretty good. Okay, we got a couple more. Twitter's interesting. It poked its head above its lifetime high. I can zoom out, but just to show you, it poked up its lifetime high. All these sellers came in. People supplied all their shares. This has been a pretty big disappointment for shareholders. If you can see here, what IPO'd in 2013. This is what I'm talking about right here. It popped out to new lifetime highs, and people supplied it with shares, and it's back kind of in that zone, that ceiling. It'll be interesting to see if it can stay above the bottom blue line. I think ultimately it does break higher. They've got to figure out some things clearly with its business model. I would probably wait for it to break above that 74, or if there's maybe a clean out, but I would stay away from Twitter. Too much confusion. You want to be with it. You want to be with something when it's in strong hands. I'd say this is strong hands, Beam Therapeutics. Let me just see how many symbols we're up to now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we got this and one more. Looks beautiful. Look at it in 2020. Could not get above $30. Just couldn't get above $30. finally figured some stuff out, broke above $30, had a gorgeous consolidation up at new lifetime highs, and just zoomed into 2021. And of course, let's just see, I just want to see what its move was in that 12 months. Up 800% in a year. Its correction was 40%. Again, something that's up 500 plus percent, whether it's up 500%, 1,000%, 2,000%, but basically anything up 5x in a year, you should expect a 40 to 50% correction. And that would be a healthy correction, meaning there's really nothing to worry about with that. It's not saying it's breaking down, but that's a huge move. And you can see how buyers came in twice at kind of the $72, $73. So we know people are buying this at $72. So for sure now it's giving it a nice floor. And looks good. I mean, yes, look, I get it. Look at all this stuff right here. Yes, that's a lot of noise here. Yes, that's a lot of noise here. Right now, what I'm doing is I'm just showing you symbols. I'm using a price chart and I'm thinking out loud with what I'm thinking. Like I'm literally thinking out loud. There's so much more to just finding a symbol. And one of the things that I train my trading students, I have a trading course, I teach them almost immediately is finding great symbols is simple and easy. Usually them coming into the course, they're taught that finding great symbols is the elixir, is where the whole game is playing. Like, no, that's actually where all your, decision fatigue is lost. And so finding good symbols is actually an easy part. It's how you position yourself, how you understand the inner game, the mindset of when you're right, when you're wrong. Are you right? Or is the stock right? Are you scared or is the stock scared? Let's look at one more. And this is Verisight, 3.8 billion. Again, beautiful here that it went sideways, right? Had a correction like everything else. It's still up for the year. And notice that right here, when it came down to kind of this $45, $47, buyers came in. So we definitely know that this is a good place. It's a good risk reward area, meaning if it breaks below this and holds below it, that's clearly your sign that something has changed. But as long as the price stays above that range, it's fine. Now, there's going to be big volatility. Let's see what this correction was in 21 so far. Yeah, 47%. And what was it coming into that? It was up 400%. So again, that's well within what it's allowed to do. And again, when you have something that's up 4x, 5x, 10x, 20x, you better darn well expect there to be price volatility. And in order to keep it, you have to understand what that expected volatility is. And this one looks like you should expect kind of a 50% movement while it's still saying everything is okay. So out of all of that, I've looked at 10 symbols. I think the two that really stood out to me, I liked Beam. Let me just bring Beam up here. And I'm going to zoom back in. Zoom back into the 3.5 year. I like that. It IPO'd in 2020, not an easy year to IPO. It got under its IPO price, didn't stay under that IPO price that long. We had sellers continually coming in at 30, finally broke above, sat on top of it beautifully, consolidated on top of it beautifully. And we have a clear spot where buyers have come in at the 73-ish dollar. And this is, I think that could just be, I mean, I'm looking at this right here, guys. That could be the clean out to have it move higher. There's so much more to finding the right symbol or to having the right symbol. That is a step because you have to have a symbol, obviously, to own. What you do with it, how you manage it, whether you're scared or the symbol is scared, even if that languaging sounds weird, there's so much magic to that and it has to be trained. You could probably figure it out on your own. Let me just see if there's one more here. You could probably figure it out on your own, but it's much more expensive figuring things out on your own because it would just take you years what it could take you months. And I like Pacific Bioscience. Again, it's done well coming into it. I think this one's up 20x. So this minor correction, I can see again what it's up, 47% correction in a symbol that's up. Let's just look here. Up 21 times. Having a 50% correction is nothing. It's clear that buyers have been coming in right around here. So as long as it stays above that 32, just kind of, I think you're fine. If it closes below this 27, that's kind of your sign that says you need to move on. Guys, there's lots here. I want to show you that it can be fun. It can be easy. Obviously, there's nuance to this. If you have more curiosity or interest, you can just click in the description, and I have this free course called Clarity and Control, which starts to dig into this completely free for you to look at. So if that is of interest to you to understand more about what it's like and the fun of trading, certainly if you've struggled at trading or you failed at trading or you're curious, you can start with that free course. Thanks, guys, for being here and being in my world. I appreciate you, and I will speak to you guys soon. You guys take care.